Every kid knows how to play hide and seek. It is a universal exercise in controlled fear, a primal simulation where you find a dark space, crawl inside, and isolate yourself from the people you trust. We only surrender our spatial awareness like this because of a strict social contract. You sit blind in the dark because the rules state that the person looking for you is a friend. But look at the mechanics required to make the game work. To play, you need darkness, absolute silence, and blind spots. This diagram shows that these are the exact environmental conditions a predator needs to navigate a space undetected. When an uninvited outsider enters that environment, the social contract collapses. The simulation is gone, leaving only the reality of a survival scenario. We are going to examine 3 true accounts where the foundational rules of this game, boundaries, roles, and trust, were exploited by strangers. These stories show how the very elements that make the game thrilling can also blind a player to a real-world threat. The first rule of play relies on boundaries. On the edge of a dense stretch of woods, a group of 14-year-olds set their limits and began a night game. One boy took his spot behind a fallen log. He stayed perfectly still, listening to the crickets and the wind, until he heard heavy, rhythmic footsteps approaching him in the dark. The footsteps stopped just a few feet away. From the shadows, a low voice began whispering, too soft to make out the words, but close enough to be human. The boy stayed hidden until the seeker called the round over. When the kids regrouped in the yard, the designated seeker confirmed he had stayed close to the house. He never entered that section of the woods. Then another child described what he had seen from his hiding spot. A tall, strange man standing perfectly still among the trees, silently observing the group as they played. Because the game took place in a porous, open environment, an unknown observer was able to integrate himself into the game's physical space without being recognized as an intruder. Our second story moves inside a locked house. 2 teenagers were home alone, playing in the dark to make the game more challenging. The narrator hid under a guest bed upstairs. He lay there for minutes, holding his breath as he heard heavy breathing and slow footsteps enter the room and stop beside the bed, assuming it was his friend. This schematic illustrates the breach. The narrator found his friend downstairs. Neither had been on the second floor. Suddenly, they heard the intruder, a slow dragging sound upstairs, followed by footsteps descending and the front door clicking shut. Police searched the property, but found no signs of forced entry. This suggests the stranger may have been inside the house before the boys even turned off the lights to play. The boys' commitment to their roles, staying hidden and staying quiet, provided the necessary acoustic cover for a stranger to move through the house undetected. The final rule is trust. On a rural property in Pennsylvania, a group of friends was approached by an older teenager named Keith, who claimed to live up the road. Keith suggested playing manhunt. He volunteered to be a seeker, then used the freedom of that role to disappear from the group entirely. After Keith left, the homeowner found this piece of weathered rope lying in the grass directly beneath his bedroom window. That night, the boy heard quiet, stealthy footsteps pacing the hallway outside his bedroom door. The next night, the intrusion moved back to the perimeter. At 2 a.m., the boy woke to a slow scratching at the glass. He shouted for his father, who ran into the yard and fired a shotgun into the air, ending the encounter. Keith used the rules of the game to his advantage. Manhunt provided him with a social excuse to move through the shadows and observe the house's layout without immediately appearing as a threat. The survivors of these nights often find that the fear doesn't leave with the intruder. Years later, the sound of a floorboard creaking or leaves rustling in the dark still triggers the same involuntary vigilance they felt during the game. These experiences suggest that hide-and-seek functions as a biological rehearsal for survival. By mimicking the conditions of a hunt, it allows us to practice the mechanics of concealment and threat detection within a social safety net. But when that safety net is removed, we are left with a chilling reality. Just because you found a perfect place to hide doesn't mean you're the only one who knows you're there.